Music legend Neil Young wrote a since-deleted letter to his management and record label demanding his music be taken off Spotify. Young wrote, quote, "I'm doing this because Spotify is spreading fake information about vaccines, potentially causing death to those who believe the disinformation being spread by them. Please act on this immediately today and keep me informed of the time schedule." Young was presumably speaking about podcaster and comedian Joe Rogan, who has been accused of peddling COVID misinformation. And Young went on, "I want you to let Spotify know immediately today that I want all of my music off their platform. They can have Joe Rogan or Young, not both."
Last month, 270 health experts and educators also signed an open letter asking Spotify to establish a clear and public policy to moderate misinformation on its platform. Guys, I don't know about you, but I think this is pathetic.
For one, no offense to Neil Young, and I don't mean to be an ageist or anything, but how many of his listeners do you think actually even know what Spotify is and are listening on Spotify? I mean, I know there's a lot of Neil Young fans out there, believe me, but his particular demographic, I don't think is necessarily, using Spotify to listen to Neil Young. That would be my first thought on that, but
yeah,
maybe I'm wrong.
as neither a big music guy nor a boomer, I only have the vaguest idea of who Neil Young even is to be totally transparent during this segment. But yeah, I agree. This is ridiculous. They're not gonna. They should. And look, you know what? If he doesn't want his music on this platform because he doesn't agree with it, fine. He can exit. I think we should all do whatever private boycott you want. I think it's dumb, but you have that right. But it's just such a lame kind of impulse at this point to be, and also Joe Rogan, he has guests on the show that have said some things that I disagree with. They've also said some things that I do agree with that are not being presented in the mainstream media, in other sources where people get information. I think his show is an extremely useful, obviously extremely popular way to showcase alternative ideas. That doesn't mean all of those ideas are good. That doesn't mean I agree with all of them. But
that's the point, right?
Yeah.
That's the point.
Exactly. That's the point. Exactly. And they're actually having a discussion on a wider range of topics than you can get anywhere else. So it's just it's so lame to object to that because, oh no, the CDC didn't approve every single sentence you'll hear during that show.
Yeah,
I don't know what this
lame.
obsession is to move into a one narrative nation. We're trying to march ourselves into that direction. But I will say that when I saw this, my first reaction was what I just mentioned, oh, how many people listen to Neil Young on Spotify anyway? But I will say that I do think if Joe Rogan, and I hesitate to say this out loud because I don't want to give anybody ideas, but if he was going to be canceled, then this would be the way he would end up getting canceled. And it would be if other big artists joined in with Neil Young and you ended up with these massive stars, massive performers that would come together and say, we collectively say we're banning Spotify unless you remove Joe Rogan from your platform. I do think Joe Rogan, I don't think anyone's too big to be canceled. Not even Joe Rogan. And I think that to me was a little scary. I thought, oh my gosh, there's a chance others join in on this. And if they're big enough, this could actually cause a problem for Joe.
So as probably, I guess, the only Neil Young fan here who had to see this from an artist that I admire, I do think, though, that it's not an accident that it was someone like Neil Young, someone who is older, somebody who is part of, an older establishment, because, that's what you're really seeing here is I think there's a lot of, jealousy surrounding Rogan because he has such a big, huge audience. I think he gets 11 million downloads every night. And that jealousy makes people on the other side assume that he is sort of brainwashing his audience, and then there's a lot of jealousy over people who, don't have the same influence, who don't see their views being spread or having the same kind of influence because they see people rejecting their views, specifically all of the COVID overreach. But I think that the truth of the matter is that his popularity is not because he is telling his audience what to think. It's because he is mirroring their skepticism about all of these institutions that have beclowned themselves by becoming totally polarized in a partisan way, like the CDC, for example, at a time when Americans most needed the authority of those institutions.
Yeah. Well, Neil Young isn't the only musician to get political, of course. Kid Rock is out with a new profanity-laced single bashing Dr. Anthony Fauci, President Biden, and COVID-19 policies. The song also includes a "Let's Go Brandon" chorus. I guess we're not playing any of it.
No other way to be relevant, right, than to do this. I guess Kid Rock is now, he's back.
Ride that wave. I do know who Kid Rock is. Obviously, I'm from Michigan originally. He's a Michigan guy. So I remember when everyone was talking about whether he was going to run for Senate, and he would have absolutely won. I suspect, but instead he's making interesting music. Probably not my kind of music, but that's fine.
But isn't this pathetic in the exact opposite way?
A little bit,
the total politicization of things like music that's supposed to be above that. That's supposed to give people a break from all of this nonsense.
Yeah, it's pathetic that music is lowering itself to politics.
Right.
Because politics is awful
said.
Ugly and gross. So you should try not to be involved with it.
And I'm not the biggest fan of Kid Rock by any means. I don't listen to his music either, and I'm probably not going to listen to a song like this beyond once just to see what he says. But on the flip side of this is media, Hollywood, the award shows and all these stars coming out, and they have all sided on the left.
Yeah.
It's been just nauseating for people on the right to, they don't want to even turn on an award show anymore. They're worried about even going to the movies, fearing that they're going to be inundated with wokeness, right? So,
or I guess in sports too, right?
Yeah, it's everywhere. So I guess, you got one guy who's going to come out and he's going to say, let's go Brandon, I guess. And then there they are. There's some representation on the right. But unfortunately for a lot of them, it's Kid Rock. And I think a lot of people don't listen to Kid Rock on the right either. I'm sure a lot do, but I'm sure a lot don't.
Yeah, it's really funny now. In every TV show and every movie, you can always tell who the Trump voter is because they're cast in the least flattering way. It's the way they dress. They put all these cultural signifiers to suggest oh, here is the villain, here is the Trump voter. And it is really appalling.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's funny. Well, I agree with you, Kim, that I don't think Joe Rogan is not vulnerable to just a challenge from Neil Young. But yeah, if they all joined up, you could see. I thought, J.K. Rowling, author of the most famous, greatest, deservedly greatest book ever, could not be canceled. And gosh darn it, they're trying to. Harry Potter world is trying to distance itself from the inventor, the creator. So that is a sign. If they can do that to her, they really can do it to anyone, which is not.
But they're not canceling Harry Potter. They're just canceling the author of Harry Potter. So
not yet. I've read articles.
Not yet.
I've read articles in places like Vox where they say you should really probably stop liking Harry Potter because it's creator. And that's not a verbatim quote, but that is the implication of what they're saying, that you should not. Because the left does believe that you should not like the art if the artist is imperfect. That is becoming a very central, progressive, not left, but identity politics, cultural, progressive, cancel culture belief. You can't separate art and artist. We can only like art from people who are perfect and non-problematic, which means we can only like things from 30 seconds ago, and on and on and on. So.
I keep Harry Potter, and I keep Joe Rogan too. So
yes. me too. Batya, are you a Harry Potter fan? Kim and I are big Harry Potter fans.
I have never read Harry Potter.
Oh my God, this is 2 in a row because I think Brianna said she's not a particularly big fan either.
I know it. Crazy.
All right, well, that's all right. We won't eject you from the chair. We'll be back with more Rising right after this.